Greetings everyone, I'm not rushed, the guy who disappears months at a time only to come back and do even less animation related stuff. Today, as you can see, I don't have a witty title for you, as today is serious business. Alright, as the next episode is gonna take a while to edit, here's a short mini-sode to satisfy you all for now. Today's topic is something I've gone over in previous episodes, though I've now come up with a term for it. I call it design continuity. Now, what is design continuity? It's when you're designing a character, specifically its abilities, and the abilities sort of make sense together. To put it simply, the less you have to use words like also or and when describing your character, the more design continuity it has. The benefits of this is it makes the character feel much more well-rounded and independent, as they have a specific skill set that plays well off of itself. So, ideally, you can explain your character's ability in a single sentence. So, for example, think of some Stick Nodes characters. Flick is a guy with a sword that can be powered with various elements. Rush can control an energy based on momentum. Unfunny is a guy with a big hammer. Now, there are plenty of examples of characters without this design continuity. It will often be something along the lines of they can fly, go super fact, can control the earth. Also they have a sword, and they can jump really high. I realize it's an extreme example, but it gets the idea across. It's a common misconception that having a complicated character makes them better. This is untrue, as oftentimes, it's more simple things that stick in our heads. Having a more simple design or character skill set makes said character much more recognizable. Sometimes a one-note character is also just easier. Take Procyon. His entire skill set is flying and shooting beams, but he's still fairly iconic. Oftentimes, it's worth working with an easier to explain, and easier to understand character. However, I'm not at all saying that complicated characters are bad. However, they just take fine-tuning to actually work properly. Take Breaker for example, he's a character with 2 elemental abilities and a demon form, right? Well, it's not as simple as that. This is where weapons come in. Now, you ideally should be able to describe a character in 2 fairly short sentences. I'm saying fairly short so you don't go full Edgar Allan Poe and start comma stopping and hyphenating, thinking you're safe. You know who you are. One of these sentences, as stated prior, will be about abilities, the other, about weapons, as they kinda go into their own categories. Now, take a look at the characters we've mentioned prior. Flick has no abilities of his own but has a sword powered by various elements. Rush controls an energy powered by momentum and his arcane sword. Unfunny is still a guy with a big hammer. Procyon can fly and shoot beams, and has no weapon. Breaker can control ice and wields a sword that can shoot flames. But what about his demon form? What if your character has multiple weapons? Just say this. For example, Mask can create decoys. He wields a spear and throwing darts. 2 sentences. Now, in literature, there is something called the power of 3. This is, in persuasive speaking or descriptive writing, the use of 3 adjectives can make something more persuasive or descriptive respectively. So, at a max, you want your character to have 3 traits. This can be an ability and 2 weapons, an ability, form and weapon, whatever. Now, take Breaker, he has ice powers, a fire sword and a demon form. There, 3 traits. What does this have to do with design continuity? Because, in the case of Breaker, you can make an interesting argument for his continuity. These 3 abilities, though at first seeming like polar opposites, play very well off of the Akatha. The ice and the fire complement each other, forming a sort of ability dissonance of sorts. The 2 abilities also contrast each other in that the ice comes from Breaker himself, while the fire comes from his sword. Now, Contrasting both is the demon form. The demon form actually develops on the other two, specifically giving him better control of the fire, no longer needing the sword. This sounds incredibly complicated, but can be very easily summarized as ice, fire sword and demon form with better control over the fire. The demon continues on from the fire, hence, has design continuity. Let's try this with other characters. Procyon flies and shoots beams. Rush has a cane sword and controls momentum-based energy. Flick has an element-powered sword. Suitcase has a jet gauntlet and a suitcase. Mart can pause and rewind time. Mask has a spear, darts and decoys. A character with design continuity should be able to be summarized in a sentence or two like this. Name, Trait 1, Trait 2 and Trait 3. A simple system that works well. Abilities should roll off the tongue well from each other. Now, how can a character with complicated abilities be made to have design continuity? This answer is through a process I like to refer to as bracketing. This is when you put similar abilities under a single label, or bracket, if you would. Take Rush's Ether Step and Ether Wings. They can be bracketed under the title of Ether Control. Can your character make weapons out of a certain element they control? That gets bracketed under control of said element. It's important to note that this whole process is for summarization of a character. A character can be as complicated as you want, but you should really be able to summarize it in a sentence or two without losing much of what makes that character that character. Again, if you can turn something like, Mask is a character who can make clones, some of which can explode. He wields throwing darts and the needlepoint spear, and Mask has darts, a spear and can make decoys. You can get the general idea across. The exploding part about the decoys has just been bracketed under decoys in general, as it is part of that ability. In conclusion, what is design continuity? It's the ability to summarize a character without losing substance. Through the use of bracketing, you should be able to have a character stick to a general skill set that can be explained in a quick sentence or two. Again, this is only a short episode, because it is very designedly continuous. And, well, you can expect a longer one next time. But, for now, peace.